sometimes just going a different path. I think we set out, we might have goals and we think we might know how to achieve them. And then you find out that maybe there's more than one way, or maybe that wasn't the right way. So I think just being able to adapt and to change directions, I think is the really important part of being able to achieve those goals.
Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat of Take the Doughnut, here to help you get inspiration and get donuts. I'm a motivational keynote speaker, and today I'm bringing you a Take the Doughnut interview with Betsy Hamm, who is the CEO of Duck Donuts, a growing international donut franchise, which now has over 150 locations around the globe. Welcome, Betsy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So glad to have you. This one is a little on the nose, but this feels right.
Absolutely. We were meant to talk for sure.
We absolutely were meant to talk. And before I ask you any more serious questions around goals, let's start by asking you the obligatory question. What's your favorite donut?
Oh, I'm pretty simple. My favorite donut, of course, is a duck donut. That's a cinnamon sugar donut with a vanilla drizzle.
Yum. And I was totally prepared for you to get our mouths watering over one from your brand, which is so exciting. I said just a little bit about you up front, but tell us more about yourself and or about your company. What do you want us to know?
Sure. So Duck Donuts, what's different about us is we're a made-to-order donut concept. So when you walk into a location, there aren't any donuts sitting there. You have to go up to the counter and you pick your donuts, and you can even customize your own. So you could say, oh, today I feel like a vanilla icing with a chocolate sprinkles and a caramel drizzle, whatever it is. We have a duckzillion combinations, but you pick out your donut and then you get to watch your donuts being made. So you see them being dropped into the fryer, you see them being topped, and then we hand you a box of warm made-to-order donuts. So that's the concept. As you mentioned, we have over 150 locations, primarily on the East Coast. We're in 26 states, and then we're in 5 countries outside the US. So, if we think Americans love donuts, they love them even more throughout the country. So we've been opening pretty rapidly across the globe, which has been awesome.
What an amazing journey. I love that you use the word duckzillion. I love that they're made to order. This is the right conversation.
Yes, right.
So I love all that. Tell us more about yourself as well within that context. So that's more about Duck Donuts,
Sure.
But who is Betsy Hamm?
Sure. So I spent the first really 15 years of my career at Hershey Entertainment and Resort. So world-class hospitality company with the home to Hershey Park, the amusement park, and a chocolate spa and hotels and concert venues. So worked there for 15 years in various marketing roles. And I had an amazing job. Of course, getting people to come to the sweetest place on earth is so cool. Who doesn't want to talk about fun and family vacations? But I kind of was just keeping an eye out for other opportunities that were out there. I knew my boss wasn't really moving on, so I sort of maybe hit a wall in terms of how much further I could go. And someone said to me, hey, Duck Donuts is opening their corporate headquarters here in central Pennsylvania area, which is where I live. And they want someone to come in and build their marketing team. And at the time, I had never been to the Outer Banks, so I was not familiar with the brand. Obviously, we started in the Outer Banks in Duck, North Carolina, hence the name. But I had texted one of my girlfriends who always went to Outer Banks, and I said, hey, have you ever heard of this Duck Donuts thing? And she was so excited. She's like, oh my gosh, it's the best donut concept ever. You have to take the interview. I'm just thinking, why are you so excited about donuts, right? I think this is very interesting. So because of her enthusiasm, I obviously took the interview. And when I met with the founder, who was the CEO at the time, he talked about this brand that people who knew it loved it, and they wanted to make it a national, really household name. So as a marketing person, you're like, wow, this is a dream come true. People who know it love it, but let's make it huge. And of course, it was a mom and pop brand at the time. They had just started franchising 3 years ago. They had 20 locations open, and it was a really amazing opportunity to come in and help build, the strategy and the structure and the people and the process, because none of that existed. So, things from simple things like logo cleanup to photography, to how we sound and look and feel as a brand, and how do we use these ducks. We had, all these really awesome opportunities to build a brand, which I feel like is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So did that for a couple years. And because we didn't really have titles at the time, we didn't really have structure. It was about a year or so into it. Russ said to me, I want to promote you. And I'm like, I don't even know what my title is today. Okay, what am I going to do? And he said, I want you to be the COO, which of course, most of the time they don't put marketing people in charge of operations. And I was like, oh, okay. But the team was very small. We worked really closely together. Even when I was in my Hershey days, I spent a lot of time working with operations folks, so understood the difference in the mindsets and how to, be in the middle, not to be too heavy operations or too heavy marketing. You have to certainly meet in the middle. So just continued to help build the team and the structure. And Russ was always very upfront that he was going to take the company as far as he could, and at some point have to bring in private equity or capital and more expertise. So we started that process in January of 2020. Of course, everybody knows what happens the rest of 2020 with COVID and all the fun that ensured during that time. But during that time, the timing was kind of interesting because Russ really took a step back and said, look, someone needs to just run this. Like you run this, you have the relationship with the franchisees, with the team. Like I'm here to help support you, whatever you need, but kind of really pushed me out there, which was good, I guess. It was not at the time, it was certainly a really trying time, but it showed that I had the ability to really be able to take this to the next level. And I mean, we survived COVID together, right? And luckily people were still buying donuts during COVID. So as the transition was happening with the private equity group, I said I would like to be considered to be the CEO, which is wild because if somebody would have said to me, 7 or 8 years ago that I'd be a CEO of international donut franchise, I would think they're crazy. Like that was never what I set out to do. That was never my intention. But here we are. So I've been in the role for 3 years and we've continued to grow. We'll open about 45 shops this year. So we'll be right around 200 by the end of the year and just continuing to accelerate that growth and sprinkling happiness around the globe.
This is incredible. I mean, both your story and the Duck Donut story as a whole, you were clearly the exact right person to talk to about this subject. So let me reset this for the audience. For those who haven't seen one of my interviews before, take the donut for me is an expression that is the same as carpe diem. It's all about going after the things you want in life. It comes from this very strange thing that happened to me in college where I left an actual donut on the table, but that became an object lesson for me and what it looks like when you leave an opportunity behind. So I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut instead of leaving it behind. So I'll link a video here for those who haven't seen that full origin story. But this conversation is really all about going after the things that you want in life, the opportunities that you want that are presented to you. So with that in mind, I want to ask you this question to get us started on that vein. How are you with going after goals? What is that process like for you?
I'm very driven and very competitive. And I like just achievement, right? Like I just want things to be done. I want to say, like, check the box. Yes, we achieved that, and to be able to move on. So, I think I've always been pretty good about goal setting overall, generally, of just wanting to improve or to be better or to grow. I was never one who was really hung up on, like, from a professional standpoint, like titles or I need to be a director, or, that was never sort of like my goals. Mine was more like just improving. I want to be able to add value. I want to be helpful. So, those were sort of how my goals were, but I definitely feel, as much as I didn't know where I was going, I think as I look back, there were steps along the way, and it was because of goals and setting that, and just knowing that I didn't want to settle. I mean, I could have, stayed at a lower level and been amazingly great at my job for years, at Hershey or a brand similar to that. But it's just that continuous improvement that I think is really what drives me.
So that might be answering the next question. When you have a really big goal, something that you're aiming for, what keeps you motivated? And I'll also make that, because you might have partly answered that, I'll make that a little bit bigger. What keeps you motivated, but also what helps you motivate the team that's working with you?
Yeah, I think just being able to say it's done and to improve, I think, is kind of what keeps me motivated. And just I have that drive. Some people, have to, I think, work a little bit harder, but I don't want to let people down. I don't want to let myself down. I don't want to let my team members down. I don't want to let my family down, whoever it is. I think having that, of being able to say, like, oh, I was helpful to this. And I think the same for the team. I always tell them it's not easy. The industry is not easy. Franchising is not easy. And we have some pretty lofty goals over the next couple of years. Those are real goals with numbers, right? Of how many shops we have to open and what sales have to be. So, those are very specific goals. that sometimes it's easy to get distracted and maybe not be focused on the big picture, or you just get stuck in the weeds in the day to day. So, I think it's my job to make sure that the leadership team has the tools and resources they need in order to support their team, that we can achieve the goals together. And some days it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Some days I feel like it's 2 steps. Wait, what is it? 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I think it's sometimes it seems very extreme, but you can't take your eyes off of what you're trying to accomplish. So, I think especially it's been a rough couple years in this industry for sure. So from a team standpoint, it's fairly easy to feel beaten down. And gosh, are we going to open the number of shops, or are we going to grow and hit those numbers that the private equity group wants us to hit? But it's just staying positive and knowing that you can still achieve it. And maybe you take a different route than you initially thought. But it's really that perseverance and resilience, I think, is so important personally and professionally when you're trying to achieve your goals.
Let's talk a little bit more about that 1 step forward, 2 steps back concept of, like, when you go after things you want, a lot of times challenges come up, does for all of us. But I'm curious for you, if there's a particular brand of challenge just seems to come up over and over again, no matter what you're doing. Is there an Achilles heel for you in the way of challenges?
No, I don't think so. I think I am pretty good at problem solving, and again, sometimes just going a different path. I think we set out, we might have goals and we think we might know how to achieve them. And then you find out that maybe there's more than one way, or maybe that wasn't the right way. So I think just being able to adapt and to change directions, I think, is the really important part of being able to achieve those goals when things come up, because they are, right? Nothing is easy. Sometimes you're like, wow, would there ever be a day where things are just super easy and we're just knocking out our goals left and right? And I'd probably be bored, right? Like I like a challenge, so I would probably be bored if everything was too easy. I'm willing to take that offer to see if I would be bored, but yeah, I think it keeps it interesting for sure.
Absolutely. When you think back historically, and this could be personally or professionally, what would you say is the biggest donut you've ever taken?
I would say this job, I think, in twofold, right? Taking the leap to come to what seemed like a very like startup company at the time. I was the first person they hired outside the friends and family circle. They had 12 employees, we had 20 shops. So I'm leaving a very big, stable job, right? Where, it's, huge brand, huge teams, just a lot of stability. And I didn't, I thought about it, but I leaped. I was like, this just seems like it's the right thing. So I remember deciding so quickly when I left the first interview, like, oh, I'm totally taking this job. Like I wasn't thinking about like what it entailed, how much it paid, whatever it was. It was just kind of like, I need to take this job. So I think that was the one really pivotal moment. And then I think the second part of that is when I took the CEO job. I mean, that was, you have that like, wait, am I really qualified for this? Like, am I really the right person? Should we have somebody who's already been there and done that before? So those were the two that I made the decision. I was really confident, but then like maybe you have a little bit of like, oh, right, this is right. So I think those were the two take the donut moments for me, which coincidentally were taking donuts.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the rare case when I'm talking with somebody
Right.
else whose actual donut was taking a donut.
Yeah. Yep.
Almost
Kind of
never
funny.
happens for me. This is awesome. Yeah. So what would you say is a donut that you're taking right now? Is there a donut currently in progress for you, and also for Duck Donuts? Let's look at that from both directions.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes together. So we've been in rapid growth mode, and we've really doubled down on accelerating that growth and opening, 45 shops. We opened 35 last year. The year before that, we opened 11. So I mean, just that excessive accelerating growth has really been a big piece of that. But then also, it's not just about opening shops, right? It's having our existing franchisees be more successful, be more profitable. So we're all franchised, and they're small business owners. So it's our job to give them the tools and resources they need in order to succeed and help hold them accountable to make it happen. So just continuing to focus on helping them and growing them has been, again, it's a challenge. The economy hasn't been great. There's way more competitors than there's ever been in this space from a treat category standpoint. And it just kind of feels like the punches have kept coming in this industry, from, COVID to supply chain issues after that, to labor shortages, to, high minimum wages. So it just seems like the hits really have continued to come in this industry, and it's just keeping the team here, optimistic and positive and moving forward, and the franchisees. It's really easy to get down and be like, oh my gosh, the sky's falling. Like, what are we doing? Why is this happening? But keeping everyone really motivated and going towards those goals, it has been the really big challenge of the last couple of years.
Oh, it sure has. So when you think about like all the people who are listening, and they could be people from your team, they could be people outside of that general public who might be listening to this interview, there may be some people who have a donut of their own they'd like to take, and they're not sure what the way forward is. Maybe they've started to take it and they're stalling, or maybe it's an idea, but they haven't begun at all. So to any of those people, let's sprinkle some encouragement. And what would you say for those people who have a donut they want to take, they just don't know what that way forward is?
um and maybe you use this, but I think it's really one bite at a time. Like I think you can get so overwhelmed with what you're trying to do and trying to take and eat the whole entire donut, but it's taking it in little pieces and working on it. And I think what I have found to be one of the biggest pieces of helping me be successful in life is it's having that support. So it's having mentors, it's having a good team, it's reaching out to other people within your profession. There's other people who've been there and done that. So I think having those relationships and support with people is really important. And it goes personally too, right? Everyone's pulled in a million directions. So whether you have kids or you have aging parents or you have a spouse or whatever it is, it's really easy to get overwhelmed in the million directions that we're being pulled in, and you forget that the donut's even on the table possibly, right? So it's just making sure you have that support around you from a personal standpoint, especially as, of course, a mom with kids. And I have two teenage daughters who I feel like are running in 200 different directions a week. But making sure I can have that support, that I can focus on that donut on the table. And then also professionally, when I started in this role, I didn't have really any industry friends, and I just started reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and it's amazing how receptive others are to that. So, finding other CEOs at similar brands or like concepts, and then picking up the phone and having those real conversations with them, like, hey, this is happening. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is totally normal. Because sometimes you think it's just you, or you're not sure how to overcome it, but there's somebody who's totally been there and done that. So having that resource to have those conversations, and of course having the cheerleaders around you in your work life and in your personal life, I think helps you to realize, like, okay, the donut's here and I can start taking pieces of it. And sometimes you might have to share the donut, but at the end of the day, I think it helps you to be able to really to take a hold of the donut.
I think this is such a great reminder that we often don't have the community we need around us when we get started on a project. Because why would you? If it's something new that you're going after, of course you haven't built the community around you yet. But from what you're saying, you actually very proactively went and created the community that you needed around you to support you in all of these new challenges that you were taking on, both for yourself and from a professional standpoint. So I think that's inspiring to all of us. Just go and start finding the people who can help you get where you need to get.
Yeah. And I think, everyone talks about networking, and there's so many locally, there's, chamber chapters who have women's groups or whatever it is. There's just so many of those things out there. It's actually taking the time to do it. And sometimes it does, it feels like time and you think, oh, I don't want to go to this networking event, but that's where you're going to meet the people. So, and then when you go to those networking events or you reach out to people, you actually have to engage, right? Like you can't just friend somebody on LinkedIn or connect to somebody on LinkedIn and be like, oh, I messaged so-and-so. Like, no, pick up the phone and ask, to have a conversation. And I have people who, reach out to me fairly often in the industry as well, who want advice or support. And I obviously give that right back because people were nice enough to do that. And be that support to me. So I think having those relationships is super undervalued, and within your company as well. I think sometimes we get so busy just working that we forget about that exposure piece within our own company. So making sure that your boss knows what you're doing and that your boss's boss knows what you're doing, and just again the people around you are so important, no matter what level you're at. But just having the right team and the right people helps to make you be able to grab the donut.
Yes, it's so true. So if anybody is interested in finding out more about what you're up to, or Duck Donuts for that matter, where can they find you?
Definitely duckdonuts.com, or of course we're on all social media platforms. And personally, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. And I'll be sure to link all of that in the description so people know how to find you and Duck Donuts.
Perfect.
Everybody make sure to check out those resources. And if you liked this video and this interview, be sure to like and subscribe, because there's plenty more inspirational interviews still to come. But in the meantime, Betsy, thank you so much for chatting with me, for helping all of us to get another picture of what it looks like to go out there and take a donut in real life.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, everybody, you know what to do. Get inspiration, get donuts. Bye, everyone.